Nice right now.
Well, even, yeah, unless if you're not cold, yeah. Okay.
Morning in progress.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody ready? Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Service District Board. I'd like to welcome everyone here. We have a pretty good sized group today. I'd like to call the roll. Linnell?
Vice President Aquino Fight,
Here.
Director Duggan,
Here.
Director Goff,
Here.
Director Hassai. See her picture.
There.
She's on. President Spath.
Here. I'd like to make a note. We were scheduled to have Council Member Han here tonight, but we had to cancel, so she will not be making the presentation this evening. I'm going to defer my comments and public comment and have the swearing in take place. If you don't mind, Chief. Yeah, let's do it now. Then the families don't have to listen to the rest of us for the rest of the evening, so.
Good evening, members of the board, General Manager Aranda, and members of the public, and the audience. Thank you for coming tonight. This is a swearing-in ceremony. It's a very important ceremony for the Kensington Police Department, the community at large. We are making one promotion today, Amit Nath, who's being promoted to lieutenant, and our newest employee, Sergeant Jose Rivera from the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department. So it's a combination of events, swearing in, oath of office, badge pinning, and a presentation of a plaque. I'm gonna introduce our distinguished gentleman here this evening. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Sergeant Jose Rivera, a dedicated professional whose journey in law enforcement has been marked by commitment, service, and leadership. Sergeant Rivera embarked on his career with the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff in 1999, following his training at the Southwestern College Police Academy. His early assignments at the Martinez Detention Facility saw him excel as a field training officer and a member of the Special Emergency Response Team. In 2002, he transitioned to the Patrol Division, serving the Central Contra Costa County area with distinction. In 2004, Sergeant Rivera joined the Oakley Police Department, where he was soon recognized as a field training officer and later advanced to the role of detective. His career continued to flourish as he took on a pivotal role in the Field Operations Bureau Investigations Division's Special Victims Unit, dedicating 4 years to this critical work. His leadership skills were formally acknowledged in 2011 when he was promoted to sergeant and assigned to the Marsh Creek Detention Facility. From 2012 to 2016, Sergeant Rivera served with distinction at the Danville Police Department under Chief Steve Simpkins, who's also in the audience today. In 2018, he moved to the Special Operations Division Health Services Security Unit, where he served until his retirement in June of 2024. Sergeant Rivera's contributions extend beyond his regular duties. He has proudly served for 16 and a half years on the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Special Weapons and Tactics Team as a SWAT hostage negotiator, has been an integral member of the Sheriff's Office Peer Support Team, and has played a vital role in the Crisis Intervention Training Program. Sergeant Rivera's unwavering dedication, extensive experience, and leadership make him a remarkable asset to our department, and an exemplary model of service. Please join me in welcoming Sergeant Jose Rivera as he steps into his new role with the same commitment and passion that have defined his distinguished career. All right. It is with great pride that I announce the promotion of Lieutenant Amit Nath to the rank of Police Lieutenant. A Bay Area native, Lieutenant Nath is the son of immigrants from India and the Fiji Islands. He is a devoted husband and father of 4 who enjoys spending quality time with his family, playing sports with his children, and exploring diverse cultural cuisines. His most treasured moments are those spent traveling the world with his family, witnessing his children grow up to embody the same determination, drive, and compassion that he and his wife exemplify. Lieutenant Nath began his law enforcement career in 2009 after graduating from the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office Police Academy. He began his service with the Richmond Police Department before transferring to the Kensington Police Department in 2017. His career has been marked by a commitment to excellence and a proactive approach from his prior experience as a business owner. Throughout his tenure, Lieutenant Nath has demonstrated his versatility across various assignments, including patrol, mobile field force operator, bicycle patrol unit, Merchants Association liaison, human trafficking task force, gang task force, crime scene investigator, field training officer, field training coordinator, criminal investigations, internal affairs investigations, and fleet maintenance supervisor. Anything else? No? You're good? Okay. All right. Notably, he was instrumental in transitioning police operations from the old public safety building to our current location. He managed complex logistical and operational challenges to ensure continued police operations were always available for the Kensington community. I cannot emphasize that enough. If it weren't for Lieutenant Nath, we would not be in the building where we are today. He was paramount in making that happen for us. Lieutenant Nath's approach to his assignments are characterized by a can-do attitude and a contagious enthusiasm that positively impacts his colleagues. Promoted to police sergeant in 2021, he has consistently demonstrated exemplary leadership and has been instrumental in advancing the department's operations and recruiting efforts. His dedication has been recognized through multiple letters of appreciation and commendations, culminating in a recent leadership and meritorious service award. With associate's degrees in general education and electronics engineering, a bachelor's of science in criminal justice, and a master's in human resources, Lieutenant Nath is preparing to enter the University of Oklahoma doctoral program in organizational and community leadership. His continued commitment to professional development and leadership excellence makes him an invaluable asset to our department. Please join us in congratulating Lieutenant Amit Nath on his well-deserved promotion. All right. All right, let's do this. All right, I'm going to take the oath of office now. So if you'll face me, come a little bit closer, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter as a police officer for the Special District of Kensington. Congratulations. Do this first. All right. Now the good stuff. We're going to start with Sergeant Rivera. Pinning Sergeant Rivera's badge will be Judy Rivera, who's with us today. All right. Pinning Lieutenant's Knaff badge will be his wife, Lily Knaff. One more item before we wrap this up. I just point out real quick, the distinction of being promoted to the rank of lieutenant takes years to do, years. The percentage of police officers that make it that long in the industry to get promoted to a middle manager position are, I would say, less than 10% all police officers anywhere in the United States. So it's a prestigious, remarkable accomplishment by anybody who gets promoted to this rank, especially Lieutenant Knaff. And for that, we thought it was fitting to get him a distinct plaque to recognize his accomplishment. And I'll read the plaque to you. It says, "The Chief of Police of the Special District of Kensington has reposed special trust and confidence in the professional excellence of Amit Nath. In view of these qualities, demonstrated leadership potential, and dedicated service to the citizens of Kensington, Amit Nath is promoted to the rank of Lieutenant of Police with a date of rank 30 June 2024. And there's a quote, I thought it was fitting for this leadership position. It says, "Leadership is not about the power we wield or the titles we hold. It is about the service we provide and the lives we touch. The best leader is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it." Theodore Roosevelt. And so, with courage as your compass and integrity as your North Star, congratulations as you embark on this new chapter in your leadership journey, destined to leave an indelible mark on the Kensington Police Department. And if we could get just a few minutes for some photographs in the back, is that okay? Thank you. You want to? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now's a good time. It's the way we did last month.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to make a brief comment about the National Night Out. I want to thank everyone who attended the National Night Out. I understand it was quite a success. Unfortunately, I was on my way back from North Carolina, so I wasn't able to attend them. But I do want to also thank our police officers who attended all of those meetings, as well as frankly, the firefighters who also attended. And their message again was, we need to prepare for evacuation during a wildfire. And I hope everybody took that to heart. So with that, I want to open it up for public comment. I understand we have a young man here who would like to make a public comment. So feel free. Is that mic? I think Chief might have turned it off.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jack McGuire. I'm 17 years old. I was born and raised in Kensington, and my family has history going back to the 1940s in Kensington. And my reason for coming up here today is I'm a member of Troop 101 Boy Scouts in El Cerrito, and I'm doing my Eagle Scout project. I was thinking about doing some restorations to the park over here. And I was just wondering who I need to be in contact with to share more info about, and also what permissions might be needed to accomplish this. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, the general manager is right over here, David Aranda, and you can contact him, and I'm sure we can work it out.
Okay. Thank you. That's
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comment? Paul?
Just one brief comment, David, to echo what you said. We had a National Night Out block party in our neck of Kensington on the 6th. It was terrific. We really appreciated all the officers who showed up and interacted. We had about 35 people floating in and out. It was a great evening, and we really appreciate their community spirit. Thanks.
Any other public comment? Anybody online? I don't. Okay. David's iPhone.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, David.
Okay, I'm interested in having you move the podium over to where it can be seen. Right now, all one can see is the three of you on two tables. The tables need to be moved over and the podium needs to be moved over so we can see who is speaking. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone. No one else? Okay. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Any comments from the board members on the minutes? Yes.
If I could make a comment, I think it looks like something might have gotten a little out of order, but basically you have the meeting minutes for July, regular meeting and special meeting. And then part of the consent calendar is you're ratifying the bills that we paid in July and the June financial statements. There's a separate agenda item to talk about the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
But from a financial standpoint, we'd like the motion to approve the consent calendar, which would include the bills for July and the June financial statements.
Right. So does anybody have any comment on the bills from July and the financial statement for June? No? All right, do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar, including the bills from July. And the financials from June.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have to do a roll call because we have two members who are not present. So will you call the roll, please, Lena?
Vice President Aquino Fight,
Yes.
Director Duggan,
Yes.
Director Hassai,
Yes.
Director Goff,
Yes.
President Spath.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We get the chief in now. The next item on the agenda is the chief. Busy man, yes.
Sincerely apologize.
No problem.
The monthly report for July has been submitted. I would be able to answer any questions you have about the monthly report. I would also offer the new item that is showing up in the monthly reports, and that's figure 4. We did install GPS locating devices on every patrol car, which conducts mapping and provides data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that is a snapshot of the police car, black and white patrol car presence in Kensington for the month of July.
Could you explain the difference between the colors, the reds and the,
Yeah,
the?
yeah, it's a little bit jammed up. We're still developing something that's more user-friendly and readable. Each of those lines represents a different patrol car. The colors, so we've assigned a color to each individual patrol car.
Oh.
We may break it up next time into 2 different reports, 3 cars each report, so you can see it a little bit more clearly. The triangles represent a pause in the vehicle's travel, whether that be a traffic enforcement stop, whether that be taking a police report, or just conducting traffic enforcement or extra patrol. That's about it. It's pretty detailed, and it looks an awful lot better in color than it's black and white. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of patrolling going on, obviously.
Yeah, if I were you, I'd stay off the Arlington because I don't even go on the Arlington anymore.
Yeah, I can see that. Any questions at all? And Sylvia, and Sarah, if you want to have a question, why don't you just raise your hand? Otherwise, I mean, that would be easier. So does anyone have a question about that? Any public? Yes, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to comment that it's wonderful to see the flock cameras are helping. And if you read the report, they were very useful in a couple of different crimes. And I don't know, I think the multicolor report was clear. Makes sense that it would be different cars. Yeah, obviously a whole lot of patrolling going on.
There was some information about the flock cameras that I put in there about the departmental order that I issued for how to respond to those flock cameras. If you noticed, one of the boxes was mentioned where the officers picked up a stolen car, but they did not pursue it. Pursuing cars in Kensington is extraordinarily dangerous. And so they didn't do it. So we have a department directive on how they will respond to all flock alerts, and that'll be integrated into the policy as well. So for now, we have a department order, and the policy should be rolled out and reviewed and approved by every employee within the week.
Great. Well, I also look forward to having cookies with the comp on
Yeah,
August. I've
Yep.
missed too many already, so I need to.
rec school was a hit. I was surprised at how many people simply pulled over, parked, got out, and met with us. It was a big hit. So look forward to seeing everybody out there on the next one.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's mention the date. It will be August 21st from 1:30 to 3:30 PM at Roxicool Coffee and Cheese on the corner of Ardmore and Arlington. It will be coffee with cookies with the cops. So please come.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Oh. Oh, Gail, I miss.
I just want to thank Chief Gankis for doing the GPS mapping. We had requested that a while back, and I'm really glad to see that he was able to make that happen.
Anyone else online? Oh, I'm sorry, Sylvia. Go ahead.
Sure. This is more of a comment, and it does relate to the police report because I just wanted to remind everybody that school is going to be starting. The WCCUSD district starts on Monday, the 19th. So that just means more traffic, new parents, and all that stuff. So just a reminder. And I wanted to ask the chief if perhaps there's a plan to replenish the crossing flags for the beginning of school if possible.
You bet. We can do that. I think last year, I thank you for the reminder. I think last year we gave qualified immunity to the parking situation at the school for the first couple of weeks. So we'll put something out on social media and we'll work on getting the flags quickly.
Thank you.
I also want to mention that people need to be careful when they're driving up here and parking. We had an accident, I guess a couple weeks ago, which from my perspective, it was driver error, someone not paying attention to what they were doing. And because we have a lot of children walking around here, people need to be extra careful when they drive, when they park, and when they leave. So, any other comments? Well, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much. Next item is the General Manager's report.
Besides what I've given some bullet points on that took place over the past month, wanted to mention that the field work has been completed on the property that we own south of the library off of Arlington. Mr. Kropp has told me that we should expect the comprehensive report by the end of August. So we should be seeing that at the September meeting. I've had a few inquiries about that. And then the other, I included a letter that the county sent in attempting to close out all our accounts. But I wanted to add that it's still frustrating because the county still has not provided us a June 30th financial that would confirm that we're all closed out and zeroed out. So we're still waiting for that as well.
Any questions or comments? Sylvia, Sarah? No? Sylvia?
Just for the general manager, any need to involve Supervisor Joya's office at this time? Or at least a suggestion if it comes to that.
The need to meet with his office in regard to the county issue financially.
Yes, to push them a little bit.
No, I've been pushing them, and I don't think, unfortunately, financial people are gonna go at their own pace. If we don't see something by the end of August, then I probably will send an email just reminding everyone in the loop that we need to close this out and be done and move on.
Thank you.
Did they provide any explanation on these true ups? You know, why a couple 100,000 from the property tax has been lowered and
They did not, but ID Bailey and I had a lengthy conversation. We went through what ended up being a true up that ID Bailey had to do based on what the county sent us. And their explanation was, as I think everyone knows, we were operating off of basically a credit card type of mentality where Kensington can draw off of money because eventually money will show up in our property tax account. With us leaving the county, we're going to see checks on a quarterly basis for all the different, for property tax and all the different assessments. So they had to do a true up, which ended up short. And what Ivy Bailey said is because there was some failings on what they said we were getting or had available versus what we did in reality when it was, when the cutoff took place.
Anyone here have a, in the audience, question? Anyone online? No? Okay. And we have also Rose's summary of the community center. Look, we had quite a bit of activity, I guess, during July, later July and August. So looks like people are beginning to use the community center for private events, which is good. So moving on, I think, as I indicated, Councilman.
I have a very quick director comment.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on the agenda, right? So the Kensington Pathkeepers, Rodney Paul and I will be leading a walk on the Kensington paths, which will be an hour and a half, maybe almost 2 hours walking, starting at Roxacool on Saturday, the 10th, which is this Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Meet there, and it will be a strenuous walk where you will definitely need to have your tennis shoes and layers of clothing because we'll be going steeply uphill and then down. So, you know, it's designed for people who can handle an hour and a half of exercise. And besides that, I wanted to mention that path maps of all Kensington's paths are available at Roxacool at the corner of Ardmore and Arlington at all times.
Thank you, Cass. Appreciate it. It's a fun walk. I've done it several times. Moving on, David. Oh, no, I don't see any hand. Okay. I'll let you introduce the next item, which is Ridgeline.
As I think the board and the public know, we've contracted with Dmitry Semenoff of Ridgeline in doing a study that encompassed an individual 10-year financial analysis of the KPPCSD, a separate 10-year financial analysis of the Kensington Fire Protection District, and then also a joint financial analysis. What we have here tonight that Dmitry is going to go through with the board and with the public is the KPPCSD 10-year financial analysis. So I'll turn it over to Dmitry.
All right. Thank you, David. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Good evening. Just trying to make sure that I'm able to share my screen. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. As Mr. Ander mentioned, that we have completed the fiscal analysis portion of the work for the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District. And you have the draft of the report in your packet. And what we're going to do tonight is first briefly summarize the report and the findings, and then go through any questions that you may have so that we can address them in more detail. As you saw, the report is pretty lengthy. So we're trying to summarize the key elements of it and go through that first. And then we can go into the level of detail that you feel is appropriate. So okay. Are the slides coming clear? Perfect. All right. So first of all, wanted to go through the methodology of the study. We started really diving into kind of the key drivers of the fiscal situation for the district. And as we analyzed the budget, it became very obvious that the prevailing cost is really the staff of the district. Anywhere from 50 to 54% of total expenses are related to salaries, taxes, benefits. So personnel is more than half of the total budget. So we created a very, very detailed model that really documents every item of the compensation and makes a projection over the next 10 years. Then we also developed separate historical models and projections for each of the funds of the district. And in building out the models, we took a really good look at the capital assets, buildings and vehicles, looked at the outstanding debt obligations, looked at pension liability with CalPERS, looked at OPEB and the trust.
Dimitri, is it possible for you to make the slide you're speaking on bigger and by itself?
Oh, okay, because I have multiple screens, so how about this? Is this better?
It didn't do anything. There, now we go. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I apologize. It's with multiple screens, it's hard to tell which one's being projected. So apologies. And then we also looked at historical revenues and costs, 2025 budget, and developed projections for each individual line item within the budget. And a lot of work has been done by David Aranda and David Spath, going through the assumptions, going through the historical patterns, figuring out kind of what's important for each line item, or as well as the chief of police. So a lot of staff time has been invested in this exercise, and for that we're very, very grateful. We wouldn't be able to do what we did without your support. So that's the methodology. In terms of the assumptions, and we took a conservative approach. So with everything, we tried to err on the side of caution. And some of the assumptions that are built into the model are the district is fully staffed at all times. So it really assumes that every position is filled at, all year round. We've built in quite a few escalation factors, looking at the property taxes, even though your historical pattern is along 5 to 6% per year on average in increases. We only looked at about 3.5%. And that assumes that recently there's been a lot of turnover of properties. And we're not sure how much longer that will continue and how much of the built-up value would be recaptured. So we took a conservative approach and put about 3.5% per year for property tax increases. We assumed the general inflation level of about 3% over the 10-year period per year. Salary increases. The way we approach salaries is if any group of employees is currently covered by an agreement, by an MOU, we assume that every employee within that group will fully earn all the step increases that are covered in the MOUs. And only after that, the annual salary increases will be going up by 1.7%. So it really is fully loaded model from that standpoint. Also looking at the medical costs, we assume that those are increasing at about 5% per year. And then also we built in a small normal cost increase for the CalPERS contributions of about 0.05% per year in terms of the increase of the salaries. So, and the UAL amortization is based on the most recent actuarial reports. A new one is coming out in the next couple of days, probably. So we will be updating the model once that information is available, but we're not expecting anything major to come out of that update. And then a key assumption that we made was that any capital outlay, any major capital outlay will be covered through grants. So those are kind of all the all the assumptions that went into the model. In terms of the big pictures, kind of summarizing how the funds are operating and relating to each other. So the general fund generates an annual operating surplus, pretty substantial operating surplus. And that surplus is used to cover the shortfalls from the police fund and the parks fund. So the police fund generates annual deficit, operating deficit, as does the parks fund. And then the waste management fund is really an enterprise fund and is designed to operate at a long-term break even. And we're projecting a very small annual surplus for that fund. So, but basically the big picture, general fund, big surplus, which offsets the shortfalls in the police and parks funds. So this is the summary of what we're looking at historically and for 10 years going forward. In 3 out of the last 4 years, the district has generated operating surplus. And then what we're projecting is going forward, most of the time there will be a small operating deficit, but in the global scheme of things, it's not that significant. So we're looking at the worst case scenario for 1 year is $150,000 of deficit. And what's important to understand about that is it's calculated under a very conservative set of assumptions. Like I said, fully staffed personnel. We're not expecting that the district will be taking any or not factoring any contributions from the OPEB trust to cover the retiree medical costs. No significant attempts by the district to reduce the costs. So just operating as if everything was fine, very small operating deficit per year. And it can easily be managed by very small efforts. So essentially the big outtake of the fiscal analysis that going forward, assuming the same level of services, assuming no major capital projects, just keeping things as they are, the district is more than capable of operating at break even. Okay, you've proven that over the years in managing your costs and revenues, and the numbers show that under the normal set of circumstances, you should be able to continue doing so. So with that, any major capital projects, whether it's on the park side or expansion of any other facilities, expansion of services, adding anything else to what you're currently providing, and the district building will require additional funding that is outside of your normal operations as they currently stand. So from that standpoint, I will be looking for grants, looking at additional assessments, looking at bond issuance, borrowing. So basically, any type of funding that you're currently not relying on. So from the normal standpoint, you're able to continue operating at break even, but to add anything else, you really need to get either additional grant funding or go to the community for support. In terms of looking at several scenarios, and the big question that stands before the district is what to do about the permanent location. So the model that we built assumes that nothing is changing. The district is staying at its current location in El Cerrito, continuing to rent its the modular unit that you're operating out of, and paying rent to the city of El Cerrito. So that's the base model. You can do nothing, and you're essentially at break even. The only suggestion that we have from that standpoint is if this is a long-term situation that you're planning to remain in, the only thing is you may want to look into buying out the modular unit. It can be done at a very reasonable cost of about, from what we've been told, about $300,000. It can easily be financed if necessary through a municipal lease, and the district is saving approximately $40,000 per year doing that. So really within several years, you have a building that's paid off and can sell in the future if you move out. So that's the base level. That's alternative one. Alternative two is modular building at district-owned land, kind of behind the library. And whether it's a new building or moving the existing building that you have, the cost estimate that was provided by Mr. Aranda for something like that is between $2 and $4 million. Okay, and as I mentioned before, the district cannot generate this kind of funding from the regular operations. So most likely something like that would require going to the community for additional support in terms of an additional assessment per parcel. Given the number of parcels that you have and the total cost amount, we're looking at an annual assessment of $82 to $157 per parcel. So assuming the entire cost of the project will be financed with debt. Then alternative three is permanent building at the district-owned land, same parcel. And for that, after a lot of deliberation, the decision was made to keep the costs on the higher level, $10 to $12 million, kind of looking at the worst case scenario. Again, staying with the conservative approach. So if this is the cost of the project to go there, and assuming that the district is not able to get any earmarks or any grants for that project, the entire project is financed with debt. We're looking at an annual assessment of $378 to $452 per parcel. And then finally, the fourth alternative that was considered is going into Kensington Public Safety Building. And as was previously discussed and very clearly documented in the prior communication, this is not a viable solution. It doesn't work for a number of reasons. But at some point, if both districts feel that that is the right approach, you may be able to accommodate the administrative personnel in the public safety building. But from the standpoint of operations room, access, having the fire and the police in the same building just does not work. So in terms of the next steps, tonight we're looking for feedback. That feedback would be incorporated into the study, into the model. We will also incorporate the final 2024 financial statements. You're, I think, right in the process of closing off the year and making the final touches on that. So we will add that into the model. We don't expect any major changes. We will also update the model with the 2023 CalPERS actuarial report, which should be coming out in the next couple of days, and also include the information for the 2024 investment return impact from CalPERS, which was announced just a few days ago. And after that, we will finalize the analysis, which will then go into the combined study with the fire district. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Any board member questions? Alex?
Well, I just want to thank you, Dimitri, for your hard work and your team's hard work on this. This is really well done, really well written and organized. I think it's answering a lot of the questions I had already. It's raising questions too. Again, I guess, could you explain to me how you came to the 10 to 12 range for the permanent building?
So this was a discussion with David Aranda. And I think previously there was numbers kind of floating around that the decision was made that we're not going to kind of tie ourselves to that number. But from the standpoint of calculating and doing the analysis, right? The approach that you want to take is, what's the worst case scenario? Kind of what, if in the kind of at the highest level, what could a building like that cost? And my understanding is that Mr. Aranda, he's done some research, talked to some people, and that's where the cost is coming out too, on the high end, right? So if you're able to reduce that cost, if you're able to get additional grant funding or earmark funding, then the total cost will be lower and the associated assessment would need to be lower as well. So it really is kind of what's the worst case scenario that we're looking at.
Okay, so I appreciate that, and I do want to emphasize to the rest of the board and the public that these are very, in my opinion, I think these are a bit extreme numbers and very worst case scenario. And I want to caution everyone to remember that we are still waiting on a lot more information. So once we do have more concrete numbers, especially after we get the seismic report, I think we can perhaps rerun that analysis with you. I think for me, though, if we step back, the bigger takeaway, which I think many of us suspected, is that if this district wants to expand, invest in, improve any of its services, including emergency service and, emergency preparedness or, supporting the needs of our elderly and disabled community and investing anything in the park, which we will need. We as a board and we as a district are going to have to think seriously about expanding our revenue sources so that's the big picture for me, that we can break even at the current level that we are right now. And we all as community members can agree that it's not, I think there's some things that we all would wish that this district could provide, that there's some things that really do need long overdue investments, especially in the park. And so putting aside the capital investment, this is the reality, folks, that we're going to have to start thinking and planning for how to really expand the pot of revenue for this district.
Thank you. Yes, any comments for?
Dimitri, I really think you do fabulous work. This was a very clear study and it shows amazing attention to detail. I like that you gave us financial recommendations on how to save money. On the modular unit, I thought the buyout was going to be 22K. For some reason, that number stuck in my head, but I think you just said 40K.
I think those are the savings.
Yeah, so were the savings per year going to be 22K or 40K?
Let me just pull it up.
Yeah.
In situations like this, I like to say that I use my mind for creativity, not for storage. So I apologize if I misquoted anything. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, so the idea is that we could potentially save somewhere between 22K and 40K on the modular building by buying it, which we could, do with a loan. What was it?
Right. I apologize. You're absolutely correct. $22,000.
Okay. But yeah, it sounds like a great idea. And Dimitri also made some other fiscal recommendations that, I hope we can check into, David. I'm really reassured that we are projected to break even. I think our next step, as I've, been kind of urging David to get us going on, is to create a survey to ask our community whether they would consider supporting, raising their own taxes to move the modular building over here behind the library, which would be somewhere between, I think it was 50 and 150 per year, maybe 80 and 150 per parcel per year. Or whether they'd be willing to finance this building, which would be a whole lot more than that. I think it was up to 350 or something per parcel per year. It's in the report. And, we need to ask the community. And so, I'm hoping we can get a survey out to the community really quickly. So you can give us your input on whether you want to raise your own taxes to build a building for the KPPCSD and police. I don't feel we've exhausted all options for grants. I'm hoping that somewhere in the future, if all we did was, keep the police where they are or move the modular, perhaps, in partnership with other, local government, we might be able to, work up enough money to build a building eventually, but we certainly don't have that money now. So that's about all I have to say, I guess.
Let me go to Sylvia and then Sarah and then back to you. Sure. Sylvia?
Thank you. Thank you, Dimitri, for the work that you've done. So my comments and questions are, one, I appreciate, the emphasis on the fact that we have traditionally operated at break even or surplus. And in all my time on the board, we've passed budgets that were, a balanced budget. I think maybe once it wasn't balanced in the end of the year, it was. So that history is really important, I think, for everyone to keep in mind. I wanted to also say that when I read this, one thing that occurred to me was in discussions of a master plan for the park. I think what came to my mind is what we really are talking about is sort of a long-term plan for, potential improvements or deferred maintenance that needs to be projected out. I think the more I think about the word master plan is probably a little overdone because the park is pretty set. So that just occurred to me as I read it, just my thoughts. Mike, I have a question about a specific thing, and it relates to in my, I think the copy of the report, page 18, you mentioned that on our vehicles and the leasing, the payments are based on an 8% interest rate. And I know that you are taking a conservative view of things, and that's probably that's the last interest rate we got, I believe, on a lease. But then on page 33, you talk about our debt management strategies. And one of them is to utilize a master lease agreement with a financing institution for recurring fleet purchases. I wonder if you could speak to what change that 8% might have if we put in one of these master lease arrangements. Do you have a different interest rate that you might propose based on a master lease arrangement?
Right. So in general, what you want to do when you routinely lease rolling stock, you want to develop a relationship with the financing institution. I think the last lease was done directly through Ford. There are specialized banks that work with public agencies. They have their own in-house leasing programs, and their rates are currently, I'm hearing in the 5 to 6% range. They utilize tax-exempt financing.
What kind of financing?
Tax-exempt. So
Mhm.
local governments are able to borrow money at tax-exempt interest rates. So those rates are usually lower. I'm not sure whether the Ford's lease was tax-exempt or not, but I think you should be able to do slightly better than that.
And that would slightly improve our picture overall as well.
Obviously, yes.
Okay. I think that was really my only real specific question. I appreciate the work, and I don't think I have anything else at this time.
Sarah?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dimitri, and to your whole team. This is a great report, and overall, I found it very reassuring. I did want to echo a bit Alex's comments about looking at the big picture and taking a real honest hard look at our situation and sort of our vision and hopes for the district too, because maintaining the status quo and breaking even for the next 10 years, in my mind, it's a little misleading because if you look at the park, for example, there are many things that are maybe now maintenance issues, say, the walking path or the retaining wall or what have you. The annex we can kind of get by fencing and all. But these things over time, as they degrade further, then become hazards and a much bigger project. And so nothing is static. So nothing is going to stay in its current condition. It's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. And at some point, there's going to be those significant costs that only become greater. So I think we're all used to, say, the park, for example, being in a certain condition, and it won't continue to be. And quite frankly, just in this short couple years that I've been on this board, I do feel like it is degrading, and that's a resource issue. And so I just want the public to really be aware that the park is underfunded. We see that the police budget is also operating at a deficit, and it's pulling from the general fund. We talk about the paths, we dream about those paths issues. There are other things that coming into play, more emergency preparedness. None of that happens, or those conversations stop, if we don't really honestly look at our financial situation in the year 2024 and moving forward. We all know how costs have risen so dramatically. Kensington is no different. And we just have to be real honest. And again, I think we all agree that this is where this community feedback becomes so critical, because I think we're all assuming that everyone feels a certain way about the level of service they expect. We don't actually know. And those desires and expectations change as the community changes and evolves. And many of these funding levels were set a while ago. So I am encouraged that, we can sustain ourselves, in a reasonable way. But I just hope for more for the community. And I see this possibility, and as we think about the possibility of reorganization and where we are as two separate districts, and really just continue to dream and aim higher. Because I think the community, my feeling is that they want it. And I look forward to doing that survey to substantiate that. But thank you for all this work.
Thank you.
Very well said, Director Goff. I just wanted to quickly remind Director Duggan that I fully support the idea of doing a survey eventually about the specific, costs related to some of these, specifically around where we house the police. But the community survey that we specifically discussed over the summer was around asking the community about priorities, about services. We are nowhere near ready to do a survey on how much folks are willing to pay, because we don't have those numbers. And so that is a survey, even Dimitri himself said that some of these numbers were pulled from conversations with General Manager Aranda, but we're still waiting on the seismic report. We're still waiting. We have not yet engaged an architect to even design a building. We have no idea. So that survey that is being planned right now is only about the priorities that the community, serving the community on priorities and on services that they expect. I want to really clarify that.
When we met and we did our strategic plan, doing a survey was one of our goals for the next year. And I actually think pussyfooting around here endlessly is really counterproductive. I think we need to ask the community if they would be willing to tax themselves in order to clarify our plans for the future. I think we need some general numbers, which actually Dimitri has provided. And, I would like to see us, maybe have a town hall about it. However we get feedback from our citizens, we need to do a better job of getting feedback on how we're doing and where we're going and, what they would like us to be doing. It was a huge complaint of the last board that citizens were not asked to contribute besides, the commentary at the beginning of meetings. And that's very short. So, I really feel like it's deliberately blinding ourselves for no good reason to not create better means of feedback from our citizens. ASAP.
Let Sylvia comment, then I'll, okay. Sylvia?
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to get too far into this discussion because I don't believe it's appropriate. It's not agendized. The survey is a separate conversation. I would like to, however, say that part of what Dimitri says in here is we may have to go for, bond financing or going to the community. I agree with Director Aquino Fike that is the point at which, in my mind anyway, that's when we're asking the community for really solid feedback. You start asking now and it's all, I can't think of the right word, but it's not concrete, it's abstract. And so I agree, there's kind of common ground here about looking for some feedback, looking for priorities, talking about services. But when you get into, how much are you willing to pay and what are you willing to pay for? I think that is a bad, strategy to go out with a survey with numbers that aren't even concrete. We're nowhere near understanding the cost of various options yet. And so I think we have to proceed cautiously. And we still can do what we said this summer, which was feedback on priorities, having conversations with the community, understanding what kind of, level of services they want. So I basically want to back up what Director Aquino Fike is saying, but I also think that what Director Duggan is asking for is also possible with more community town meetings. These meetings are business meetings. They're not designed to be town hall meetings. The other opportunities that happen every year are the KPOA annual meeting, and there are other methods to engage the community. And we should be doing that all along so that at the end of this process, people don't feel blindsided as they did in the past. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Alex, you had a,
Uh,
yeah, I'll get to Gail in a second, but I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I just, I'll wrap it up. I think we need further conversation, and I understand it's not on the agenda. But I just want to say I am committed to getting community feedback. I'm not backing away from that. But it would be irresponsible to put on any survey concrete tax numbers.
Okay, going to the audience, Gail?
Can you unmute me? Or am I?
You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Dimitri, for the analysis. And I found it very sobering, but nothing really new. We all have known that the budgets have always been really tight with the district, and that there isn't really a lot of wiggle room to do anything extra without finding resources to do it with. So I think also using some conservative numbers was helpful, just so that it doesn't state, either on the revenue side, but I also felt like perhaps it was a little too conservative on the labor side. But that I'm going to leave up to you to determine. But I do have a question, and I'm wondering if it can be included in your final analysis or in an update to this one. I was looking for how much debt capacity does the KPPCSD have left? So right now, the KPPCSD has borrowed about $4 million, which they're paying back for the pension obligation bond and for the community service, the community center. And so that's about $4 or $5 million. And so based on their current revenue stream and their liabilities, what could they actually borrow as a standalone district? And then in your final report on consolidation, it would be helpful to see that should the districts consolidate, what the debt service capacity would be as a consolidated district, meaning a district that had $10 million in revenue versus one that has less than $5 million annually, how much they could borrow to do some of the things that I know some of the district directors would like to do. So is that something that can be included in your next analysis? And also one other thing, and I've had these conversations with the general manager about the pension obligations, and those obviously are fluctuating as PERS determines its earnings. But it is concerning because last year, Edie Bailey showed quite a substantial increase in outstanding liability for pensions. So all those things need to be taken into consideration, how the district would continue to put money aside for those costs in the future. So I hope that's clear, and maybe you could address that, or one of the board members could ask him to address that. Thank you.
Anyone else online? A question?
I'd like to mention, Dimitri, I thought in your report you did mention about debt capacity.
Yes, can I answer the question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in terms of borrowing capacity, there is really there's two types of borrowings that public agencies can do. One is where the agency itself pays for the debt service out of its operating budget, right? And you have the, for example, the community center loan. That's an example of that. And then another type of borrowing is where you go to the community and really it's the taxpayers that are paying the debt service. And so in order to be able to borrow money using your own revenues and your own balance sheet, you actually need to have annual surplus. And kind of the big outtake of this fiscal study is things staying as they are and keeping with the current trajectory. The district really on its own does not have a borrowing capacity to borrow any more money in any meaningful way. You're able to continue borrowing, doing lease financing for the police fleet. The important thing to remember about the pension bond is it's not that you borrow that money not because you had extra cash flow, it's because you freed up cash flow by refunding pension liabilities. You actually reduced your payments to CalPERS through the refinancing. So from that standpoint, it was not a new borrowing, it was just replacing a liability to CalPERS with a cheaper liability to a bank. So from that standpoint, the district doesn't have any capacity to borrow any meaningful amounts of money on its own. So any financing would have to be supported by the community. Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Any other comments? Well, Dimitri, whoops. And
I just wanted to ask whether or not we will see in final reports as we proceed what a consolidated district's capacity would be.
Yes, that will be included.
And I mean, the fire district currently, I assume, well, they did some borrowing for this as well, for their building.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
Any other comments? David?
I just wanted to thank Dimitri for his grittiness and continuing to work with staff in regard to some of the numbers were very difficult from a historical standpoint. There was some discrepancies that we had to get straightened out. But I want to emphasize that this is a working document that the governing body of the Kensington Police Protection Community Service District essentially should be using every year for the next 10 years. And of course, you can even extend that out further as we start seeing the patterns. So this is a fantastic document that is very valuable to the governing body as well as to management. And I'm excited to see this document. I hope the board receives and files it and we continue to refer to it.
Yes, you have a question.
I have a question as to how far along you are with the fire board in completing their study.
We're working on their numbers. They had some delays in providing the information, but we're working through that.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Dimitri. You've done a great job in putting this together. And it was a struggle too, trying to get all the information straight, particularly the historical information, for sure. But it does, as the board members, all of you have mentioned, it's going to bring us to have a real discussion about going forward, funding and what decisions we want to make and what the public is willing to do. So with that, do I have a motion to receive the report and file it?
Sure. I move that we receive Dmitry Semenov's Ridgeline fiscal report and file it.
I second the motion.
All right, we have 2 seconds. Call the roll, please.
Vice President Aquino Fike,
Yes.
Director Duggan,
Yes.
Director Hassai,
Yes.
Director Goff,
Yes.
and President Spath.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I can explain to you after the meeting. Okay, I will, Director Duggan would like me to explain why we had to cancel Councilmember Hahn's presentation. And the issue is that even though it's an important issue, the closing of Alta Bates Hospital, it is not part of our, let's say, subject matter jurisdictions. We are not involved in emergency services as the fire board is. And so any comment, which the presentation would have been, a comment from the public, would have been inappropriate for that reason. So, and actually, I asked the staff from Councilmember Hahn's office if they wanted to reach out to the fire district, which I believe they will, because fire district's jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction does cover emergency services. So hopefully she'll be able to make the presentation to them, because I think it is an issue that the residents of Kensington need to hear about going forward. So with that, last on the agenda, David.
Thank you. I'm going to give a brief overview. I went into some details in my actual report for the fiscal year that ended. I think a couple of things that are important is if you go to, on your agenda package, if you go to the last 2 pages of my report, there's a spreadsheet of a budget summary by department. And what becomes very clear are a few things, and there's explanations for them. The revenues that we projected, through the whole year, I thought we were going to be over budget for revenues. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the county basically shorted us 200,000 out of property tax money. So that's why we came in a bit under what we budgeted. And then when you look at the police, we were over budget. But I want to make a point that most of that money was not because we were off on what we budgeted on regular line items. It was because of grant money that was coming in that we didn't know at the time we made up the budget that we were going to get approval, and we did receive it. But that is in conjunction with the capital expense that was not budgeted, which was a police vehicle for the DUI program. And so the majority of that 101,000 was covered under the DUI program from CHP. When you look at the parks, we just got done talking with Dimitri's report that the conclusion is the parks need more funding to support themselves. So don't be fooled by the 562,000 in actual revenue. And that was because the county had been holding on to our money from a park bond that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, supposedly closed out. And there was an amount of 232,000 that basically came into us. So if you subtract those, you can see that really we were close to what we budgeted. And what we budgeted did include 180,000 of grant money. So you wonder why that revenue went down for this fiscal year is because we're not projecting any revenue as we're speaking for the parks. And then solid waste was pretty much what we expected on the revenue side. The operation took a hit primarily because we did a study with legal in regard to some information about the franchise fees and some recommendations on how to move forward, which we are doing. So it's all on a positive plane that we're looking at that. I think that we're going to find, and unless when the auditor goes and does this, who knows if you find something that I'm not aware of, but I think we're going to find that when Dimitri does the update, we're going to show a much better, even better than break even for the fiscal year that ended in 24. And what you don't see here reflected is the district is in really good position. You're never going to be in perfect position, but it's really in good position when it comes to the CalPERS retirement issues, the OPED medical money that the district has put away. That's overfunded. And so I'm, as your general manager, feeling very comfortable, not only with the way the fiscal year 24 ended, but moving forward as we go into the next few years in conjunction with Dimitri's report and in conjunction with some things the chief and I have been working on in an effort to reduce additional costs with the district. So if anyone has any questions about my overview, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Questions? Yes.
Couple quick comments. I really think that, David Aranda and Heidi Bailey, our accounting firm, have done a great job. Also the chief. And I agree that it's going to be wonderful to have Dimitri's report to summarize and look back on, maybe keep him doing reports like that to keep us going, on a good footing. I want to congratulate Sylvia Hassai and her previous board for getting ahead of CalPERS and OPEB potential problems a couple years ago. Great job. Obviously, we need to keep our legal costs down. And I personally disagree that we need to pour tons of money into the park. I think the park is great and it's an amazing resource. It's funding itself. Maybe we could make it fund itself a little better. The only thing I really think we might want to look for money for, perhaps through grants, is the annex, which could be a much better resource and which could be used perhaps in, solving our building problems, or maybe just putting the administrative part of the KPPCSD there. I want to say about the police, we were pretty understaffed this year, and that was too bad, but the overage that it gave us allowed us to be flexible, and we decided to buy the flock cameras and tasers, both of which put us on a, kind of 2024 basis as a, police department. So, that actually was a really smart decision. And I think as we go along, we think on our feet, we're flexible, we're just trying to be smart. But it is concerning that we don't have a lot of overage. I'm hoping, maybe grant writing can find us some more better resources. We're in such a great position for, wildfire, earthquake funding. There must be more help for us out there, and perhaps we can get creative and figure something out with that. Thank you.
I neglected to say something. I've had the privilege of working with this board and with the staff. And I've been very impressed with the chief's ability, despite being short-staffed, of his control of overtime. One of his software programs, which is in our payroll system, produces reports on overtime and breaks it down. And when we went over it together, it's very evident that, and it can happen in many agencies where overtime just starts creeping in and no one pays attention to it, and it gets to be the elephant in the room. And I will tell you that this overtime, every hour was justified in the need for it. And so moving forward, as we're moving into this fiscal year, that mentality will continue with this district.
Any other comments? I appreciate Dimitri's recommendations or considerations on a couple issues on the OPEB. The use of the OPEB trust monies. I think that's something the board needs to take up and create a policy for that, because we are very well funded in that, and we will be seeing 9.3% probably increase, because it pretty much parallels what CalPERS investment is getting. So it's a policy we need to look into. And also with regard to the pension UAL, it's another issue that we might want to look at. I know we prepaid, even though it was a small amount this year, but a policy for doing that, I think, would also be appropriate. I don't see any hands.
It's on.
We're all set? Nothing? Okay, with that, I will close the meeting, and we'll have another meeting in September, and looking forward to that, and moving closer to the election as well. And so thank you, everybody, for attending, and also those who are online. And Sylvia and Sarah, have a nice vacation.
Thank you.